Alright, so now we're going to get ready to install the piston rings. I got the number 2 ring, or the middle ring, and the top ring. So we're going to check ring gap. So we're going to go ahead and put it in the cylinder. Alright, and then just take top of a piston, put it down in there, make sure it's nice and level, because if it's not, it's going to give a bad reading. We'll go ahead and see what we got. Let's go ahead and make sure it's straight. Yeah, it's a little off. See how it tightened up? Didn't have it in there all the way straight, so it'll give you a bad reading. Alright, so we got 25 thousandths, which is in spec. And we're going to do the same thing with the top ring. Or, yeah, this is the top ring. And 25 again, so we are good to go. So we'll go ahead and install these on the piston and then check our ring land gap. All right, so so you got oil control ring, so it's going to be a total of 3 separate rings. It's going to go on the bottom. You got your second ring. This has a beveled edge, and there's going to be a dot to indicate top. If there's not a dot, normally have a T on there, and then your very top ring can go either way. There's no markings on it. So we're going to go ahead and start on the bottom with the oil control. Now on an oil control ring, you want the tabs facing up on the piston. I'm just going to go ahead and slide it over. Then we're going to put on our bottom oil control ring. One with our top. Alright, and we want to make sure none of the gaps are in the way. On any of them. Alright, we're good. So now we're going to take a piston ring expander. I wouldn't recommend doing the spiral, putting them on like I did the oil control rings. You can on, different engines that have a lot thinner rings. These are 3/32 thick and they're cast iron. They don't have a lot of give to them, and you can risk snapping them. So it's best to be real careful with a expander. The only complaint with these expanders is the tabs are pretty shallow on them. So we're just going to go ahead and try to keep it on there, and then make sure we're facing the top. There we go. Same goes with our top ring. Alright, so now we're just going to check our land clearance. good there, good there. So about 6 to 8 thousandths on that. Anything bigger than that, you know, I'd be a little cautious, but we're good. So now we're going to assemble the piston on the rod. Alright, so you got an oil spray hole here. Normally that's going to be opposite of the stamping. So we'll go ahead and flip the oil spray hole facing in, and then we're going to oil the pin. So you see the T-slot here? So that T-slot's going to be opposite of your oil spray hole. So we'll go ahead and start the pin. So you got this slot here for the bolt, pin retaining bolt. So that went in better on the opposite side. So, pardon the mess. So most of the time they should go right in. We'll make sure our slot's down. There we go. See, I just put it right in with my hand. Should slip right in. Just need to give it a couple taps with a rubber hammer. Go ahead and put in our bolt. I might have to knock the pin back and forth a little bit to get that slot just right. I'll pull the bolt out. There we go. So there is a torque spec on this, but you need like an offset multiplier to reach up in here. So we're just gonna do the human torque wrench method. Put some grunts on it. There we go. That pin just needs a little bit of adjustment. Just move it back and forth, and then you should thread it all the way in by hand. Alright, so we're going to go ahead and put in the connecting rod bolts. As long as you don't drop them on the ground. Swiping it off. So you see there's an ear on it. So you're just going to go ahead and drop them down in there. Give them a couple taps. There we go. Same thing for the other side. Alright, so we're going to put the connecting rod bearings in. Managed to find some Clevites. The mains were an off-brand. Sealed Power wasn't in stock, and Clevite wasn't in stock. I have a preference to Clevite. You know, they're still made in USA, and every set of Clevite bearings I put in, I've had nothing but good things to say about them. So you can see the quality of them. They come with some packaging with care and everything like that. You know, they just go the extra mile. So that's the oil hole, so that's going to lubricate the bearing and then also go out the sprayer. So when you're cleaning these up, make sure all that passage is clean. So go ahead and snap it in there. We'll put on some assembly lube. Give it a good heavy coating of that, and then we'll put more on the journal or on the crank pin when we're ready for that. And then same goes for the cap. The cap we're going to leave dry because we're going to check bearing clearance with plastic gauge, and we'll pull the cap on. When we pull the cap off and everything, we'll assembly lube it. So alright, this thing's ready to go in. Alright, so I got the piston and connecting rod ready for install. Just put you a couple pieces of hose on the stud so you don't nick the crank pin. Got assembly lube on the bearing, and got the piston lathered with oil. Lubricated the wrist pin down here as well. Just got as much oil everywhere as possible. Also make sure your rings are offset and they're not in line with the T-slot. That's what it says in the book. I don't know specifically why, but anyway. So you're gonna need a ring compressor. You can either use a cone type, which 3 1/8 was kind of hard to find. I actually didn't find it. They had a 3 1/2, and then obviously 4-inch being the most popular size. But we're just gonna slide this over. Let me loosen it up a little bit. Or you kind of need a third hand sometimes. There we go. Tried not to look like a total idiot. So on these, the oil spray hole right here, this is going to face away from the camshaft. So your T-slot and your stamping are going to go towards your camshaft. So we're going to go ahead and slide the piston down in the bore. Also make sure whatever crank pin you're doing, that it's all the way at the bottom. So 1 and 4 are going to be at the bottom, and then 2 and 3 are at the top. So go ahead and just double check our rings, make sure they didn't get moved. We'll go ahead and slide our ring compressor over, and I'll go ahead and get it cinched down. Makes it kind of hard with really oily hands. So there we go. Make sure we're all still lined up. Actually helps if you start. This is the last one, and I still freaking forgot. Didn't forget, but go ahead and get it to where it'll kind of the bottom. The skirt is just in, but we're just gonna go ahead and send it on through. Makes everything going a lot easier. So I'm gonna go ahead, hold it there, make sure, come over here, observe that the rod is going in straight like it should, and then with one hand feed it in, and with the other hand kind of pick up on the rod itself. Make sure your ring compressor stays flush, because they'll sometimes want to pop up on you, then you'll get a ring stuck and have to redo the whole thing. So that's what I'm doing here to make sure. And it looks like it. There we go. We're all the way through now. If you remember, that dome doesn't have a it's just like pretty much the fire ridge. So I'm gonna keep hammering it all the way down while guiding the rod. Actually, I'll probably just reposition the camera. You saw everything you need to see here. Hopefully the lighting's good. Doesn't look very good in the viewfinder. So you see I'm kind of keeping it up. Alright, we're all the way seated. Let's go ahead and move our pieces of hose. Get the pliers. Dang. Of course, this one's fighting on camera. There we go. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and grab the cap, and we're going to check the bearing clearance with plastic gauge. All right, so we got the bearing cap dry. We got the piece of plastic gauge in there. It's going to be the same as checking the mains. Probably give that a little tap. It's because these connecting rod bolts probably aren't the same exact ones that came out. It's no big deal. All the other ones went in pretty good. This one just decided to fight me because it's on camera. So we go ahead and draw our nuts in. And then we'll go ahead and torque them down and show you the results. Alright, so the reason the cap was hard to put on was this bolt got pushed up and it wasn't seated all the way. It's good to go now once I drew it all down. So we're at about 1.5 thousandths, so right on the money again. So perfect. This is the last critical tolerance to measure. So finally we're all done with bearing measuring, and the last thing we've got to check is connecting rod side plate. Side plate. So I'm going to get this plastic gauge cleaned off, cover it, lather it up with assembly lube and the bearing, torque it all back down, and then I'll have the engine flipped over and we'll check connecting rod side clearance. Alright, so they're all in. We'll go ahead and give it some rotations. Make sure everything feels good. Already got an exhaust valve in. Just giving the new valve spring compressor a test, and it works. So yeah, no binding. Everything's nice and even. So you just want to watch your crankshaft position and you know, feel if you have a tight spot or a loose spot, kind of note where it is. Feels good. So cool. We will go ahead and check connecting rod side clearance. I'm going to go ahead and flip it over. We'll check 2 and 3, then turn it and check 1 and 4. Alright, so brain fart, we're checking 1 and 4 first since they're at bottom. So connecting rod side plate, you're measuring how much wobble's in there. There's no thrust bearing. The connecting rod bearings don't act as thrust. I did measure these before before the engine was rebuilt, and they were super sloppy. We were, I think, at 15 thousandths, and the maximum allowable is 10 thousandths. So we'll see what we got here. So I got a 4 right now, so the spec is 4 to 10. All right, so we got a 4 goes in there. Pretty tight though, pretty tight 4, so we'll go ahead and move on to a 5. If I can find it. Where are you at? Like the feeler gauges go from 4 to 9. Oh, let's put a 6 in there. I can find a 6. Six has some drag to it. Oh, can't get this. There we go. Alright, so I'm going to call that a 9. So we're just barely on the cusp. Yeah, see, it's real tight. So yeah, that's a 9. Let's go ahead and rotate the engine real quick. Oh, lost my feeler gauge. All right, 9 again. Tight. So yeah, we got a 9. Got like a 9/8, so we're good to go. So the last thing to button up on the bottom end here is install the oil pickup. But before I install the oil pickup, I'm going to put the rear main seal back in. It was binding up. So, but before I button up the bottom end, I'm going to install the exhaust valves and install the intake valves. Pretty much install everything that's going to rotate and move, so I can get some rotation and movement in it, make sure everything's good, because that rear main seals, it's been soaking in oil for about a day. Hopefully it fixes itself. If not, I'm gonna probably order another one just to have as a backup in case that one is screwed up. But all right, we'll go ahead and flip this back over and start on the exhaust valves. All right, so we got the last exhaust valve to install. It's got some assembly lube on it. We're just gonna go ahead and get it started. Leave it hanging out like that. We are using the original rotators. You can buy a kit that comes with a stamped steel retainer and keepers, a more modern style. I've always used the rotators, never had an issue with them. I believe the reason you would convert them is if they get wore out. There's just some ball bearings in here, and yeah, I think that's why people convert them. But I don't have a single engine in here that has anything but the rotators. So what they do is every time the valve gets pushed up and comes down, it rotates the valve, so it doesn't wear it out in one spot. It rotates it. So, all right, so on the valve spring, the exhaust valve springs are going to be longer, the intakes are going to be a little bit shorter and fatter, and you always want to put your coil towards your base. So in this case, it's going to be towards the top, and then on the head, it's going to be facing down. And then your rotator cup is going to fit in the spring. And then make sure your fingers aren't too tired, because these springs are pretty stiff. There we go. So we got this valve spring compressor. It's a conventional overhead valve spring compressor, but it's also working for this L-head setup, which is nice, because that one I use in the teardown video is the one I've had for years, and it's always been a real pain to use. So this one's made life so much easier. I don't dread doing valves now. So we're gonna install our keepers. I got new rotator style keepers. You can reuse the old ones if you don't break them or lose them or whatever. And then I'm using the same transmission assembly lube that I used on the transmission and transfer case. So now this arm's just kind of in our way a little bit. All the other ones were a breeze. Should have did one in the middle to make it easier on camera. Don't look like a complete idiot. So I can at least pretend like I know what I'm doing. Yep, see, I just dropped it. And I got the engine off to the side here. It's making life a lot easier than having to hunch over and everything. Alright, so I got that one on. And then probably get a little bit more lube on it. And if you don't have this, you can just use regular old tacky grease. Should work for you just fine. There we go. That's making more sense. So I'm gonna go spin this one over. Yeah, you gotta have little fingers to do this. It's even worse when it's in the Jeep. I had to do them on my CJ5. I had to replace the exhaust valves with it in it, and it was an absolute nightmare. Yep, it just spun out on me again. Damn it. Yep, I should have filmed the other ones. Oh well. You guys can watch me struggle. Let's get your popcorn out. Damn it, man. Nobody long videos, just going longer. There we go. I feel good about this now. Damn it. Taking me just as long to do this one as it did all three. Let me get more assembly lube. Probably right where I need to get is where the camera is too. Oh, I felt it snap in. There we go. All right. Finally. All right. So the last thing to do is we're going to go ahead and just adjust them. I think it's 16 thousandths, maybe 18 thousandths. I got to look in the book. I can't remember. But we'll go ahead and rotate the engine real quick. Get my crankshaft socket on. Just make sure they all go freely, and see if they rotate. Yep. All right, cool. All right. I'll go ahead and just adjust number 2. Number 2 is ready to go. And it's probably in better view of the camera. So to adjust them, you're gonna take a thin, they're both 1/2 inch. So you're gonna take a thin 1/2 inch and just a regular. Bring your adjuster up. Yeah, we still got a long way to go. All right, leave those there. Feeler gauges. I'm gonna say 18. they're gonna have to be adjusted again anyway after everything breaks in. Yeah, we'll set them tight to 16. But anyway, that's what you do. You just stick it in between there. There's no lock nut or anything. It's just a friction fit. So no jam nut to worry about or anything like that. It's just nice. Make sure it's all the way down. There we go. You could also do this running. Sorry about that, I had a phone call. But yeah, it's just going to be a friction fit on the nut or on the adjuster bolt. So there's no jam nuts, super easy. So I'm going to go ahead and adjust the rest of them, and then we are ready to put the head on and the rocker arms and all that. That's going to be on the next video. I'm going to go ahead and call it quits on this one. I'm sure this one's pretty lengthy. So if you guys have any questions, leave a comment. You can email me. If you need parts, I can get parts for these. I can get it used. I'm trying to accumulate some used engines. I got a bunch of transmissions and transfer cases that could be put up for sale, refurbished. I need to get this done, this whole restoration done, before I really start focusing on selling refurbished stuff. But yeah, if you need one of these, either an L or F head, send me an email. I can try to track one down for you. I have a spare in the shop that I have as a personal spare. But yeah, any kind of parts or anything, let me know. They make a lot of these new. All these valve springs are new production. I can get the valves, bearings, all that stuff. So all right, until next time, have a good one.